the Biden Department of Education has proposed a rule change for Title IX. So let's start with a very basic here. What is Title IX? Title IX was part of the Education Amendments of 1972, and it read very simply, this is a quote from it, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance, period." So in very simple terms, it prohibited discrimination based on sex at any school facility or any activity associated with any school. Back in 1972, there were, and I want to talk about this just as it relates to sports for 1 second. Back in 1972, there were less than 300,000 women that played high school sports across our whole nation. 295,000 to be specific. Fast forward to 2022, the number of women who play high school sports is over 3 million. The reason for this, in large part, is Title IX. In college, that number increased from a mere 30,000 female athletes back in 1972 to almost 200,000 female athletes today. The access to these sports at the college level and high school level for women is in large part due to Title IX. Now, the Trump administration proposed some changes because Title IX is not just related to sports. It's not just related to bathrooms. The Trump administration proposed some changes because the Obama administration before the Trump administration had twisted the interpretation of sexual harassment or discrimination on the basis of sex and had actually weaponized this against men. So it's almost like the classic feminist trope. Feminists claim to champion equality for women, but really they're man-haters who want to demonize men. Well, that's what the Obama administration did. They said, well, we're going to believe all women. It's like the Me Too movement stuff. We're going to believe all women based only on the accusation. So if a woman accuses a man of wrongdoing on a college campus, to hell with the due process of law for the accused. That person, mostly men, that person is going to enjoy no presumption of innocence until proven guilty. That person will be treated as guilty based on the accusation of the woman because the Obama administration said that protects women. Obvious BS, very dangerous, attacks a bedrock value of our country, which is this presumption of innocence. Then enter the Biden administration, or the Trump administration, excuse me. The Trump administration, the Education Department was headed by Betsy DeVos. And I talked to former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos just a couple weeks ago about this very topic, and this is what she said. One of my favorite things that was accomplished at the Department of Education under your tenure was restoring due process to college students who may or may not be falsely accused, but regardless, they deserve the right to due process. That's one of the things you were hit by the left the hardest, but it was one of the things that I thought this has far-reaching implications outside of education. This is a bedrock foundation of our country, and you played a huge part in that.
Absolutely. Well, and that's threatened now with the Biden administration's proposed Title IX rule. And I urge all of your listeners to get out there, opine on this. It's public comment period right now. Let your voice be heard that we cannot and we best not turn back on due process protections for all students.
And we're back. And we're going to get to your comments in a second because Secretary DeVos said opine and comment, and oh boy, did you opine? Oh boy, did you comment? I want to read some of the great comments that were left by you on the Federal Register. I broke the record of how many members of the public had left comments on a proposed rule change like this. So congratulations, well done on leaving those comments. But that's what the Trump administration sought to do to protect due process rights. This was a comment from the Trump administration at the time. They said, bureaucracy created in our nation's institutions of higher education have often stacked the deck against the accused, failing to offer protections such as presumption of innocence or adequate ability to rebut allegations. That's a very scary thing, right? Imagine facing an accusation that's false or an accusation that's exaggerated, so partially false, and not only not having due process, that just that accusation made you guilty, or if there was some kind of kangaroo court proceeding that you weren't allowed to defend yourself. You weren't allowed the right to cross-examine the person that was accusing you. That's what the Obama administration had implemented. That's what the Trump administration reversed. And now the Biden administration is flipping it again, but even worse than how the Obama administration had it. So the Biden Secretary of Education, his name is Miguel Cardona, says, and I quote, "Our proposed changes would fully protect students from all forms of sex discrimination, including, or instead of limiting some protections to sexual harassment alone, and make clear those protections include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity." This is a huge change. So I want to read the original Title IX. No person, and I read this a moment ago, I want to read it again. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So the phrase in question is on the basis of sex. The Biden administration is now redefining the word sex to not just mean what sex means, male or female, but to include sexual orientation and gender identity. To say that this opens up a can of worms would be the understatement of the year.